Hello my loves, thank you for joining me on another video. My name is Ennie and I post solved, unsolved and missing person cases on my channel. If you enjoy this type of content, you're welcome. Please consider subscribing to my channel. Today we're in the beautiful city of Johannesburg, South Africa. Our case today borders around domestic violence and how damaging it is. This is something that just keeps happening over and over again, no matter how much you talk about it. But we're not going to stop talking about it, with the hopes that one day men and women will stop hurting each other. This is the case of Karabo Mokoena. Karabo Mokoena was born on the 27th of March 1995 into a very loving home. Her mother was called Lauren, or Lolo for short, and her father was Tepo Mokoena. They lived in the South African city of Soweto, in an area called Deep Love. Karabo and her siblings were very close. You know this type of families, the siblings just had each other's back, no matter the time, no matter the place, no matter the situation. That was the type of family Karabo came from. She and her sister Bontley were like two peas in a pod. They shared a bedroom. Sometimes they even shared clothes. They basically did everything together. Two sisters complemented each other. She was a bright and sweet girl. She was described as very loving, generous, and super talented, and of course, extremely beautiful both inside and outside. She was also smart, and then she loved God too. In 2014, she graduated from high school and she decided she wanted to study something related to business. So she enrolled into the Regency School to study business on a part-time basis in 2015. But Karabo was so driven. She felt like she just was not okay with having just a qualification in business. She didn't want to be a regular chick, so she went ahead to get an aviation license from the AAFSA, which basically is just an aviation training organization in South Africa. This she did while she was still a student at the business school. Now, Karabo had another passion that she took quite seriously, and this was in relations with the rights of women and children. She was so concerned about the rights of women and children that she began to volunteer in her spare time at a shelter called Fred Hartley Shelter, where she became known as that woman who will give you a listening ear no matter who you were, so long as you wanted to talk. She was particularly involved with abused women, so she would give talks and speeches to these women. She would educate and empower these abused women. She constantly looked for ways to make them feel better about themselves anytime she found herself at the shelter. Karabo was really passionate about helping these women and children, so much she would tell people that she envisioned herself sometime in her future having a charity, like a non-governmental organization that would cater to women and children who were going through abuse of any sort. Fast forward to October of 2016, while still a volunteer at the shelter and still studying at the business school, Karabo met 27-year-old Sandile at a shopping mall while she was out shopping with her friends. According to her friends, she was so excited about Sandile. They had lots in common, especially when it came to spirituality. Sandile was a young man who had grown up in Mbatlekle and attended school at Secunda. Not much information is out there about his family, but what we do know about him is that he was born in 1992, studied graphics design in school for his degree, so he was basically into graphics. But apart from this, he was also a huge deal in forex trading, which was like the in thing in 2016. Sandile was said to be very religious. At this point, it's not clear to me if he really was a Christian or if he practiced any other religion. I know he went to church, but later on in the course of discussing this case, you will understand why I said it's not clear to me if he was a Christian or not. People who knew him just said he was religious and very spiritual, like he liked going out to prison outreaches, evangelism, and all of that. I think these were some of the attributes that made him very attractive to Karabo in the first place. He carried himself with such charisma and air of wealth and affluence that it was almost like he was a show-off. Well, I think he was a big show-off. He lived a very flamboyant and flashy lifestyle. He seemed to be very wealthy at 27 years old. At least, that was what his social media pages depicted. Sandile had 3 young children from previous relationships. It's not clear if he was ever married to the mother of his last kid. Some reports say he was divorced from the first wife, while the last child was a product of another relationship. Other reports say he was only separated from the mother of his kids when he got another woman pregnant. Either ways, he was not together with his kid's mother when he got together with Karabo. Sandile owned a binary trading company called the $1 Trillion Legacy, and his flashy and in-your-face flamboyant lifestyle was said to be as a result of the success the $1 Trillion Legacy brought him. He lived at the Sunken Sky apartment building, which was no regular apartment building. It's a full-service apartment building with luxurious decor, very expensive apartment building. I think about 20k, that's 20,000 rands a month, depending on the apartment you lived in. If you lived here, that means you had money. He even bragged about how much he made in a month, which he put at about, I think, 100,000 rands. He frequently showed off his designer brand clothes and accessories, as well as his fleet of exotic and limited edition cars, be it Mercedes-Benz or BMWs. Every opportunity he got, his social media account always showed him living large. Apart from the income from his $1 Trillion Legacy company, he was also providing private classes to individuals who were interested in forex trading for about $400 per session. I think a session was an hour, so he was making $400 per hour at the time on days when he was mentoring. Now, as a young lady who was very ambitious, Karabo was drawn to Sandile's success, his charm and his charisma. You know, for a young man to be so focused and to be doing well financially, it didn't hurt at all. It wasn't easy to find a good guy who was stable and who had that zeal to be successful in a way that it aligned with your own aspirations, but was Sandile all of these things that Karabo really thought he was? We'll find out in due time. It didn't take long for the two to hit it off after they met. Their relationship progressed rather quickly and they seemed to be the perfect couple, a perfect match. I mean, look at Karabo. She was super attractive, strong and ambitious, and Sandile was wealthy and religious. What a combination. To individuals looking from the outside, they were a power couple. Barely a month into the relationship, in November of 2016, I think, Karabo moved in with Sandile at his Stanton luxury apartment. Listen, I know moving in with a new boyfriend, be it 1, 2 or 3 months, seems to be too early, but let's consider that it happens. You are in love and nothing else matters to you. You don't even think before you do things. You don't listen to anyone even when they're telling you to slow down. You just want to do what your heart wants. I think that was the type of situation that Karabo was in when she moved in with Sandile, barely 1 month into the relationship. She was in love. She wanted to be with him. So when the opportunity came, she moved to be with him. But was this a wise decision for her to make? Well, shortly after they had moved in together, Karabo quickly realized that Sandile was not exactly whom she thought he was. How do I put this? You know how they say when you live with someone, you know their true colors? That was exactly what happened to Karabo in this situation. The loving, caring man she thought would love her forever, the man whom she had come to love so deeply, seemed to have flown out of the window only to be replaced with an evil, mean and ruthless Sandile. Karabo found herself right in the position of those women, those vulnerable women, the abused women in the shelter that she always spoke to. The same women she educated and encouraged to take charge of their lives, leave their abusive relationships and reinvent themselves. Sadly, she couldn't take her own advice. Karabo stayed and took all the abuse. It was physical, it was psychological, it was mental, but she tried to cover it up, at least for some time. No one knew what she was going through with Sandile except maybe her family and a few friends, like her best friend Stephanie. To the outside world, they seemed happy and perfect, but bad things were happening to Karabo behind closed doors. Stephanie had witnessed one of their episodes where Sandile had gotten physical with and intoxicated Karabo after partying at a local nightclub. I think it was after a night out at a club called Icon. The argument started from the car and spilled into the apartment, and Karabo during the altercation fell really hard, hitting her head on the concrete floor of Sandile's apartment. It was just one of the many times things like this will happen. Sometimes in December of 2016, I think, it was shortly before Christmas, Karabo, while hanging out with her friends, decided to confide in them that she and Sandile were kind of having issues. According to the story she told them, she said that during an argument, Sandile had seized her cell phone and smashed it against the wall, and he had also grabbed her and showed her pretty hard against the wall. This argument we were talking about was over something really petty. Sandile wanted to use Karabo's phone and she refused. That's all. That was what got him worked up. There was another incident where Sandile headbutted Karabo because of an argument over bringing random girls into the apartment they shared. This incident left Karabo with a badly swollen forehead for a while. Listen, I don't know if this was all the Sandile did to her during this incident or in the course of the relationship. I'm not sure, but women who are being abused tend to downplay what was done to them by the abuser, especially when they feel ashamed. I'm just trying to say Sandile might have done more to her that day or other time than she was letting on. The abuse didn't stop there. By March of 2017, it all escalated to the level where Karabo would send pictures of her battered self to her friends. I don't know if this was a cry for help. She knew her situation was not good, and maybe she was hoping for her friends to urge and give her that extra push to leave Sandile by showing them the pictures of what he was doing to her. I mean, she had cuts, she had bruises on her person. She revealed that she was also going through emotional torture as well, as Sandile would not only physically attack her, he would also call her names and spit on her. One would wonder why Karabo, who was such a strong advocate against this type of situations, was letting herself be treated this way. Well, she loved him so much she was hoping he would change. Fast forward to the 27th of March 2017, it was Karabo's birthday, a day she would usually celebrate. So her friends and her family tried to reach her to wish her a happy birthday, but no one could get a hold of Karabo. Her mother, Lauren, thought, okay, maybe she was busy with birthday preparation, so she expected Karabo to return her calls when she had seen them and when Karabo was less busy, but Karabo never called. So she called her again and again, but still she couldn't get Karabo on the phone. So she went to Karabo's social media to at least check if she had made any post that day since it was her birthday, but there was nothing. And that was really strange. It wasn't like Karabo not to post anything on her birthday. It was at this point she began to really worry that something must have been wrong with Karabo. Eventually, she did get that call from Karabo, but that was very much later after she had been subjected to much worry and confusion. So what had happened was that Karabo was actually hospitalized. She had no way of letting her family know where she was or what had happened to her because Sandile had again smashed her phone beyond repairs, and this was after he had given her a very serious beating. What Sandile did to Karabo isn't something one does to a person they claim to love. Karabo had a black eye and bruises on the left side of her body. She had taken a really bad beating from Sandile, after which he threw his debit card at her to go get herself treatment. The beating was so bad, so much that her brother Lebo and sister Bontley, when they arrived at the hospital where she was being admitted, they didn't like how the sister looked, so the family urged her to go to the police station and make a report. And for the first time, Karabo agreed to go to the police, but something weird happened when she got there. When she arrived at the police station, a policeman attended to her and took her statement, but as she narrated her story to the officer, she made mention of her attacker. She told the police officer that Sandile was beating her. At the mention of Sandile Mansour, Karabo was told she could not file a complaint because the person she was accusing, Sandile Mansour, had come into the station that morning. While she was at the hospital being treated for what he had done to her, this man went to the police to file a complaint against her and requested for a restraining order against her. He claimed that she was the aggressor and he had proof. He had bruises on him and he claimed those were done to him by Karabo. However, it would come to light later on that he had taken a fall after a night of partying and drinking, and that was how he sustained those injuries. He had also been involved in a robbery situation where the bad guys would have handled him. He still had some of the bruises at the time of making that report, and all of this he blamed on Karabo. Karabo was shocked that Sandile was doing this. She was shocked that he was going to this extent, spinning a web of lies and even going as far as reporting her to the police first to cover his tracks. That situation opened her eyes to how much more dangerous this man was. So upon her release from the hospital, she just went to the apartment with some of her family members and moved her stuff right back to her parents' home. Oh, I think I left one part out. Before all of this, they had one day gotten into a huge argument, and Sandile had raised Karabo and slammed her against the bonnet of his car, and that dented the car. It was also one of the receipts he had used against her while reporting her to the police. He told them she intentionally smashed his vehicle. What a manipulative person he was. After this incident, Karabo had spoken to one of her friends. She said, quote, "Everything may look perfect on the outside, but inside I am rotten. This man can beat me as much as he likes. This body is not mine. This body is the temple of God." End quote. Approximately 2 weeks after all of this, the story will become a tragic one. By April of 2017, Karabo was now living at home with her family. The police eventually struck out both complaints, asking them to go settle their relationship issues by themselves, but Karabo would not see Sandile. She avoided him like a plague. Since Karabo's friends could not celebrate with her properly on her birthday, they decided to give her a treat, so they invited her out for a night of clubbing. That night had started off quite nicely. They were at a club Karabo loved. The friends were enjoying the girls' night out when, at the corner of her eye, she spotted whom she thought was Sandile. When she looked to confirm it was really him, immediately she was thrown off balance. She stepped aside to call her mom. She told her mom, "Mom, Sandile had just entered the spot where I and my friends are hanging out." Her mom was like, "You just get your friends and leave immediately. Come home now." When Karabo made to leave the club, Sandile got up from where he was, walked quickly over and blocked her exit. He insisted they needed to talk. There was like a moment of back and forth right there. Despite warnings from her friends, Karabo finally gave in. She obliged. She was going to talk with Sandile, let her hear what he had to say. Next thing you know, they were back as a couple, seeing each other again. Of course, there were people who were not happy about this. Her mother, Lauren especially. She wanted Karabo to stay away from Sandile, that he was no good for her. But Karabo insisted that Sandile was changed. He was doing better this time around. He wasn't hitting her anymore. He was putting more thoughts and effort into the relationship, buying her gifts and flowers every now and then. Well, we all know how people like Sandile truly are. They never change. Even if they do, they can only change for the worse, and that was exactly what happened in this case. On the 27th of April, Karabo called her mother to tell her she was going out to Sandile that night. She told her mother she would not be coming home that night as she was sleeping over at Sandile's apartment. Let's not forget, let me remind you that when they got back together, Karabo did not move back in with Sandile. She was still living with her family, so it was important she told them where she was if she wasn't going to come home. Thank God she told her mother where she was and who she was with. Her mother didn't like the idea of her staying with Sandile, but she couldn't talk her out of it. The CCTV camera at Sandile's apartment building will capture both Sandile and Karabo entering the apartment at about 2:48 a.m. in the early morning hours of April the 28th. From the footage, you could see that Karabo was still upset from something. It will later come to light that there had been a fight or an argument between them at the club, so they didn't say a word to each other. But this was the last time Karabo was seen alive. During the day, mind you, it's still April the 28th, Karabo's mother tried to reach her again after she had briefly spoken to her the night before. But something was off about this call that she made to Karabo. Karabo was sounding very weird on the phone. She was practically whispering. She told her mother, "I can't talk now, and Mom, I'll call you back later." It was kind of unsettling for the mother because Karabo was the one who always engaged her in long talks, but she waved these thoughts aside and waited for Karabo's call, but it never came. Her motherly instincts, after waiting for Karabo's call for hours on end, began to tell her something was seriously wrong. She picked up her phone again, and this time she frantically began to try to reach Karabo. After several attempts, she decides to call Sandile to ask about the whereabouts of her daughter. She got through to Sandile, and he told her that Karabo didn't stay the night at his place. According to him, she left for home after they returned from the club. Karabo's mother immediately knew that was a lie. She knew Karabo had stayed the night at the Santin apartment, so the family immediately began to search for Karabo. Meanwhile, Karabo's best friend Stephanie and the rest of her friends were also trying to get a hold of Karabo, to no avail. Karabo's family went to the Santin apartment, and her sister asked staff and other residents if they have seen Karabo. Her mother had Karabo's picture with her, and she showed them just in case, but no one there seemed to have seen Karabo, at least not on that day. The family got in touch with her friends and people that knew her, yet no one had seen or heard from her. By this time, everyone was worried and looking for Karabo. The family returned back to the Santin apartment again to check if anyone since their last visit had seen Karabo or anything that belonged to her. It was then that they were told that a cleaner had found Karabo's belongings, her ID card, her passport, and her bank cards in the trash, which had been put in a bin bag and then placed in a room next to the building's elevator. Immediately they were informed of this discovery, Karabo's mother went straight to the police to file a missing persons report. Karabo would not bag up her belongings by herself and place them at the location where they were found. The only logical explanation was that someone else placed them there, and if someone did place all those things there, Where had the person placed Karabo herself? The police, when they got the reports, were kind of like slow on following up on this case. Karabo's friend had to take matters into their own hands. They were everywhere online talking about Karabo and how she had gone missing. They had posters and flyers made, and before long, people began to talk about it all over South Africa. But there was this particular account that kept leaving messages on multiple posts about Karabo missing. The account was saying, I'm okay, I'm in Nigeria, I'll be back, but everyone close to the situation knew for a fact that that was a hoax because Karabo's passport had been found in the trash. There was no way she would have gone out of the country to Nigeria. Karabo's mother once again reached out to Sandile to ask where her daughter was. She could feel in her guts that this man knew exactly where her daughter was, but Sandile was giving up nothing. He told her something strange though. He said, I don't know where Karabo is, but I didn't kill her. Mind you, at this time, no one was thinking of that. To them, she was only a missing person, but Sandile's strange response made Karabo's mother begin to fear the worst. Meanwhile, all the time Karabo was missing, Sandile was going about his life like he normally would. Like absolutely nothing had changed for him. Like nothing was happening. This was a man whose girlfriend was missing. He was doing nothing to search for her apart from a flimsy post he made on Instagram saying she was missing. Instead of searching for her, he invited his friends to his apartment to party. It was said that these friends had noticed a large wedge patch of carpet by his kitchen, and Sandile had explained it away that his fridge was broken and had leaked onto the carpet. On the 30th of April, the police finally decided to go to Sandile's apartment to check it, because Karabo's mother had told them that he was the last person to see her alive and that was the last place Karabo was seen before she seemingly disappeared. When the police arrived at Sandile's apartment, he was not at home, but told the police that he would be home later at about 9 p.m. So they all waited, including Karabo's mother, for whenever he would return. While they were waiting, the police requested for the CCTV footage of the building, and the building management obliged. It was on this surveillance footage that it was seen that on the day after Karabo had gone missing, at about 57 minutes past 9 p.m. on the 28th, that's almost 10 p.m., Sandile had collected a wheelie bin and taken it to his apartment. Fast forward to 10 minutes later, at about 7 minutes past 10 p.m., he is seen moving the bin to the underground parking lot where his car was, and by 29 minutes to 10, he is seen driving out of the underground parking lot. This raised eyebrows. His movement was kind of suspicious, you know what I mean? Investigators wanted to know. They wanted to know exactly what was going on. They wanted to find out what Sandile had in that wheelie bin. So they waited for him to come explain. Now remember, Sandile had told Karabo's family that she didn't spend the night at his place, that she had left to go back home. When he was questioned by the police, this lying man changed his story. He said Karabo had taken a flight to London with a Nigerian man she had met at his apartment building who drove a Ferrari. Like how? That was a blatant lie, and it wasn't difficult to prove because Karabo's passport had been found in the bin. One of the investigating officers went into his apartment to look around. They spotted the same wet carpet that Sandile's friend had seen earlier and questioned him on why the carpet was wet. Sandile told them that he had cleaned the carpet because he's selling the apartment and the estate agents and buyer were coming to view the place. Something is fishy, and now he's really a person of interest, so he was taken in for further questioning where his lies began to unravel rather quickly. At the station, Karabo's mother Lauren insisted on waiting at the waiting area. She wanted to be the first to know if and when Sandile revealed any information concerning the whereabouts of her daughter. About an hour into the questioning, a police officer comes up to her and told her Karabo wasn't coming back home. Apparently, Sandile had told the police that Karabo was deceased, but that confession wasn't recorded, so everything he had said in there was easy for him to deny afterwards. Then Sandile began to give conflicting versions about how she had passed away. He, however, did admit to moving her body into an area near Colette Drive in Lyndhurst. I think it was called Plessy Park. Sandile was asked to take the police to where he had dumped Karabo's body. But when they got there, nothing was in the area. The body was no longer there, but it could clearly be seen that the area was kind of like scorched, like something was recently burnt there. At this point, Sandile was kind of happy. He thought he was off the hook because if there wasn't a body, there would be no case. Since the police could not find Karabo's body, they eventually had to release Sandile from custody, and instead of this man to lay low, he went about his flashy lifestyle, which was like the normal to him. He was posting pictures of his cars and gifts he had gotten from his now numerous women online, while Karabo was still missing. Now let me explain why Karabo's body was not found at the location where Sandile had dumped her. So that area actually was under the jurisdiction of a different police precinct. You see how different police stations cover certain areas? It's like the geographical area are divided for them. Okay, so a man was going to visit his friend when he happened upon a low burning fire. Out of curiosity, he came back the following day, moved closer to where he had seen the fire burning the previous day, only to find the partially burnt remains of a body. When the body was found, a used petrol keg was found close to it, as well as a partially burnt sheet stained with red vital body fluids. There was also evidence of burnt out car tires that showed that the tire might have been used to start up the fire or might have been used to aid the fire. The body was reported to the police, and the responding police station took it to the morgue, and the investigating police station didn't know about it. It would take quite some time before the two police officers would link the case of the unidentified body to the case of the missing Karabo. By May, it was officially confirmed through DNA that the body was indeed that of Karabo. On the 19th of May, Karabo was laid to rest in a beautiful ceremony after a funeral service was held at the Diplop Hall. It was attended by family, friends, and well-wishers. Now that Karabo's body is found, Sandile knows now that there is a case, so he begins to spin a web of lies and confusion. He denied he ever told the police that Karabo had passed away. He said he was forced to confess to the crime under duress, and he insisted the police were only trying to pin the crime on him. When he saw that this version wasn't holding water, and obviously nobody cared about his lies, he came up with another one. He said when he got back from work on the 28th of April, he found Karabo already deceased in his apartment, and that he believed she had hurt herself on purpose using a sharp kitchen utensil. You know what I mean? According to him, she was already cold when he got home, which means she had gone for a while. He panicked, worried that people would pin it on him because of how turbulent their relationship was in the past, so he decided to dispose of her body in a pool of acid first. Then he put a car tire over the body, poured petrol on the body, set it on fire, and dished it in an open field in Lindot, where it was later found. Sandile would still change his story. He came up with yet another one, and this one, is strange. According to him, he and Karabo had gone to a priest and carried out a blood ritual, a covenant type of thing. The ritual was a money-making ritual to bring him and Karabo great wealth, but there was a catch. If they ever were to break up, in other words, if they were to end their relationship, one of them would have to lose their life. And Karabo, on her own, had decided to be the one to go, so she had sacrificed herself. This was according to him. Despite all these elaborate stories, he was still arrested and formally charged. Meanwhile, Karabo's friend kept insisting that Sandile must have hurt Karabo because he thought she was cheating on him with a Nigerian guy that lived in the same apartment building as him, and that this was the same reason he and Karabo had a fight at the club the night she was last seen. The case went to trial, and oh boy, Sandile had nothing good to say about Karabo. He tried to paint this woman he claimed to love as a gold digger who loved money too much. He said she followed different rich men so she could get money from them. He even said she was mentally unstable. He was practically doing everything to paint her in a bad light. To what ends? I don't know. Maybe just so that people would think less of her and empathize with him. During his trial, he recounted the entire money ritual story. The judge would not even admit that type of story in court. Sandile went back to the original story where he said she did it to herself and he had only found her that way after he returned from work. He claimed that all he did wrong was to dispose of her body. He took the stand on the third day of the trial, I think, and he was disgustingly arrogant and cocky. He tried and failed woefully to paint himself as a good guy. Imagine, this guy had the guts to tell the people that the only thing he was guilty of was trying to help build Karabo, who was broken and damaged. He claimed to be the brain behind Karabo's proposed NGO. What he was saying basically was like, look guys, I'm the good guy here, not the bad guy. Karabo is the bad person. How daft did he think people were? Everyone who watched or attended that trial hated him for doing this. During the trial, expert witnesses were called upon to analyze the CCTV footage and Sandile's movement after he claimed he had found Karabo deceased in his apartment. Let's say it was true, which we're not saying it is true, that he had come home to meet the situation as he claimed he did. There was ample time to go to the authorities with what he had seen, yet he chose to take the cover-up route and began to make up stories regarding Karabo, even using fake social media accounts posing as her to say she was in Nigeria. Each court appearance for Sandile looked more like a red carpet event for him. Sandile will appear in court dressed to the nines. He will wear expensive get-ups, designer suits and expensive gold wristwatches, acting like he was some sort of celebrity. He was granting interviews left, right and center, anything to get him attention. He acted like he would rather be somewhere else making money instead of being in court. Ultimately, on the 30th of May 2018, Sandile Mansour was found guilty and sentenced to 32 years in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge, Pete Johnson, described Sandile as a cold-hearted man and a devil in disguise that deserved nothing but harsh punishment. One would agree with this because the level of narcissism, the arrogance this man portrayed in court showed everyone a glimpse of what Karabo had endured with this man in the few months of the dating. It's not clear what really happened to Karabo that night. Only these two know exactly what had transpired between them that led to Karabo losing her life. A lot of people didn't understand why she stayed, considering what he was doing to her. It makes one wonder if there was an element of truth in the whole money ritual story. Sandile had told people that when he and Karabo got together, they had gone to a person whom they called Master. This person called Master performed the ritual to bind them spiritually and to make their businesses grow and they would be very wealthy. According to him, Master had made a cut in their body and the red vital body fluids were mixed, and the condition was that should they part, one of them must be sacrificed for the ritual to remain effective. Now, the reason people speculated there was some iota of truth in this particular ritual story was because when Karabo's body was found, it did somewhat look like that of a person who had been used for rituals, like the skull and part of her ribs were what remained of her upper body. Internal organs, including the heart, were missing, but mind you, an attempt had been made to dispose of it using acids, so this could easily be explained away. Also, there was a question of why was Karabo so quick to go back to dating Sandile after he had abused her so much? Was it because there really was an oath and she was scared of the repercussions should she have left? Considering she was a strong advocate against domestic violence, something compelling must have been pushing her back into that relationship. That relationship didn't even last long, and she saw hell from October 2016 through April of 2017 thereabout. It was only for a couple of months. Well, Karabo is gone. It's sad domestic situations like this keep happening, and many, both male and female, keep losing their lives to sad domestic situations like this. Karabo became a symbol of the scourge of gender-based violence in South Africa when Sandile took her life. Sadly, there was a set of individuals, some social media trolls, who were actually painting Karabo as someone who deserved what happened to her because she was a slave queen. I don't care what anyone says. Nobody deserves violence, period. That's my opinion. Karabo's friends and family decided to keep Karabo's dream of opening a foundation for abused women alive by launching the Karabo Mokoena Foundation in October of 2017. If you're watching this video and you find yourself in this type of situations, I pray you learn. Know when to say, I've had enough. Life has no duplicate. Get yourself out of that situation, if not for yourself, for the people who love you. If you do not have that willpower to do it by yourself, talk to someone. Find a local number for help for people in domestic violence situations and ask for help. Before we end this, let me just include this information. It will later come to light that with all of that flashy living and show-off Sandile was doing, he was deeply in debt. He apparently was owing a lot of people in millions. So what then was all that $1 trillion legacy brouhaha about? It was all scam, and Sandile was using his charm and his braggadocious attitude to cover up the fact that he wasn't making all that money, at least not as much as he claimed to be making. All the expensive clothes, the cars, the luxury apartment, all that was people's money. And that religious BS, well, he beat up Karabo severally and severely and took her life and claims to have been involved in money rituals. So what religion are we talking about? Now you see why I said in the beginning I wasn't sure if he was Christian or not. Well, this is all I have for you today. If this is your kind of content, just subscribe and like this video. If you haven't watched the Udeme ODB story from Nigeria, I think it showed it's very interesting. I will link it up here for you. Also, send me your case request via Instagram. If you have any case you would like me to cover, the link is in the description. Until next video, bye.